of Ariadne auf Naxos, the Richard Strauss opera. Now, you remember a couple of weeks ago we were talking to two of the performers in that show. Well, now we have the boss lady, the director. Kathryn, before anything else, welcome. But tell us, in a very potted version, what the opera's all about.
Absolutely. So Ariadne is an opera, to me, that is actually more about high art versus low art, and the way that they explore those themes is by having a troupe of opera performers that have arrived at a rich person's house to perform in the evening, and also a comedy troupe of performers who have arrived, and they're scheduled to do 2 performances back to back, and then because of some scheduled fireworks later in the evening, they are then comically requested to perform simultaneously. And so the opera is about the chaos of that scenario and how those 2 art forms interact together.
And could I suggest that we possibly have even modern equivalents when we get these clashes in Australia's Got Talent?
Yes, potentially.
Right, okay, so that's the outline of it, and of course it's 100 years old, but does it creak at all?
I think that there are certain things that I'm trying to do to modernise the opera in this production. So it will be a modern opera. It's not going to be set in 1916. It'll be set here and now. And for example, there's a pants performance by the composer, so a woman playing a man who is a composer, but I've decided just to make her a woman because it's 2016 and there are female composers.
Yes.
So just little touches like that, just to try and bring it into the modern times.
Okay, now can we talk about Kathryn Osborne? Now, you're probably better known for straight theatre.
Yes.
Is there any sort of change in your technique and working methods?
Yeah, absolutely. This is only my second professional opera. I've done another show with OperaBox a few years ago, and it's been a really interesting experience. I've also worked with Lost and Found Opera recently as a producer, which is also another hat that I wear. And as a director, you do have to approach it differently because singers have a lot more things going on than actors do normally. So, they have to memorise the music, they have to get it exactly right, and then you have to bring their performances alive as well. And it's a different sort of language that you have with the performers to help them characterise.
And you've also, you might like to comment on this, you've also got that other thing where you have, in fact, I called you the boss, but in fact there are 2 bosses.
Yes, absolutely.
And so that interaction between the MD or conductor, who often doesn't come into a production till way after you've done your work, that must also be a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a very collaborative person, so I quite like that structure of having you have to work together as a team to make sure you're achieving a common vision. However, having said that, the music director's vision will obviously be more rooted in how it sounds, whereas I'm more about the staging and how it looks. Exactly. But there are sometimes challenges where you as a director want to do something and that's just not going to work for the singers, or it doesn't sound right, or gets in the way of the music. So I think often as a director of opera you want to put your mark on it, but you've also got to give the music space to do what it's there to do.
And also too, I think you are very fortunate in the sense of using the Sheppard Performing Arts Centre. I mean, quite frankly, I much more enjoy quite often going to that theatre than, say, to the State Theatre. I don't know what it is. Can you perhaps talk about that?
Yeah, it's a beautiful space. It's got a wonderful orchestra bit, and I guess it's more suitable to opera the way that they've constructed it because they've had that in mind. Whereas I guess the Heath Ledger Theatre is more for straight performance. But there's something about the Heath Ledger that I also find is quite distancing, like the way the seating is arranged and how far away you are from the performance. Whereas I feel like you feel a bit closer for some reason. But I think it's also because it's longer and it's just
It's a lovely space. All right, let's talk about the actual production itself. Now, it's opening very soon on the 9th, and you've got 3 performances, is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
So 9th of September, and what time of night, all that sort of thing?
It's 7:30 p.m. I can't remember the exact days because we have a couple of breaks off, but it's
9th, 11th and 16th.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you. 7:30 p.m. It's a 2-act piece, very funny, but also has some really beautiful moments in it as well towards the back half when the opera itself, the opera that the composer has written within the opera, is
so you get two for the price of one.
You do. And there's going to be, I really enjoy playful staging, getting everyone involved. So there's going to be a lot of really great action to watch and beautiful set design that we're working on at the moment. So I really encourage people.
Tell me, Kathryn, and I don't want names and pack drills, but do you often have to change your own thinking when you're working with a particular singer in a particular role or some such?
Yeah, I think that's the same with acting. It's really good as a director to get to know the personalities and the strengths of the people you're working with, and it's your job to communicate to them in a way that will get the best out of them for that performance. So I think you're always responding and changing your style to help build the production based on the people.
Any difficulty that you see? We have the main bulk of the cast are West Australian singers that we all know and love, but there are a couple coming or have come from interstate and so on. Is there any dilemma in your mind with that sort of work setup?
I try not to let that worry me as a director because as a singer and an actor, it is your job to work with people you've never met before. So I sort of rely on their level of professionalism to make that work, because you have to get into a room and you have this really intense experience with people you might not know or anything, and you still need to be able to deliver a performance. So
right. Yeah. Well, when we finish this interview and after the next piece of music, we'll give you the details of how you can book and all that sort of thing. But before you leave us, Kathryn, and I'm putting you on the spot now, what is your favourite medium? The straight theatre or the music theatre or the opera theatre or what?
I actually I love theatre that has music in it, but that can happen in lots of different forms. So even in my straight theatre, I often work with composers to write original music. I work with maybe a solo singer. So I tend to like that live sound of music. My brother's a jazz musician and I've always been around musicians and I love musicians. So I think that's also why I'm starting to get involved in opera a little bit more. Like, obviously that's very music driven, but even in my theatre productions, sound and music is a big driver of what I do.
Last question, what's after the opera production in September, what's on the plate for you?
Well, I'm also the artistic director of a youth theatre company that's in Mandurah, and we've actually got an adaptation of King Lear that we're performing at the end of September, so I'm working on that at the same time at the moment. It's called Queen Lear.
So you're pulling the flag down to half-mast for the 400th anniversary of the death of Shakespeare. Kathryn, have a wonderful time with OperaBox and also with King Lear, and come back and talk to us and tell us what you're doing after those things are underway.
Will do. Thank you so much.
And don't forget, the season at the Joy Sheppard Performing Arts Centre at St Hilda's School is on the 9th, 11th and 16th of September. For bookings, you can call 0406 258 450.
And would you repeat that, please, madam?
Yes, I will. It's 0406 258 450. Or, as always, call us here on 9364 9888 and Lynn will give you that number.
Now it is, as we promised, quiz time.
Yay!